Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of Programming with Java. I'm your host Trey, and today we're going to talk about arrays. So without wasting any time, let's begin. So what are arrays? In Java, there are two types of arrays. We have single-dimensional arrays and multi-dimensional arrays. And a single-dimensional array is an array um, is a collection of elements of the same data type arranged in a sequential order. Each element in the array is accessed by its index, which means it starts from zero. So that's just a basic introduction or basic explanation of what a single dimensional array is. Let's talk about multi-dimensional arrays, and I'll explain to you exactly what these are. So a multi-dimensional array is an array of arrays, basically. It can be thought of as a table of elements where each element is identified by a set of indices. Or, try putting it simply, a multi-dimensional array could be something like a matrix. Remember, if you did matrices in high school math, you remember that a matrix has got a row by column, right? So in Java, you can use a multi-dimensional array to display a matrix. So let's talk about single-dimensional arrays. So we have the implementation and how to declare an array. So first things first, we're going to talk about the syntax. And you have a syntax of this sort. You have data type and you have the array name. Great. So you have these brackets here, and then you close that. So to initialize an array, you can use the new keyword, right? So this is the syntax. And then if you want to initialize an array, you're going to say data type and then the brackets here, and you have your array name is equal to new data type, and then you declare its size. How big you want the array would technically be up to you, and how much you want or how big the array you need. But essentially, you have something of this sort. So you have public class, and then your name of your class, obviously, and then you have ints, your brackets here, and you have numbers, which is equals to new int 5. Remember, I talked about how to declare an array using the new method, and you have the data type here, which is an int in this case, and then you have the brackets here, and then you have numbers as your array name. And then you say equal to new int, which is the data type there, and then you say 5. So you declare the size of this array to only contain 5 elements, and only 5 elements. Nothing more and nothing less. If you were to put something more than 5, you will get a runtime error, and it will give you an index out of bound exception error. So with that being said, let's talk about array initialization with values. So we've learned how to initialize basically using the new operator, but let's talk about actually inserting data into the array. So you can initialize an array with values at the time of the declaration. So you can either choose to say data type, you open and close the brackets here and say array name is equal to new data type and then the size, or you can just say data type this guy and then you say equal to. You open the brackets here, these curly brackets, and say value 1, value 2, all the way up to the desired value that you want. So you can declare it like this. So you have public class, whatever you decide to name your class, and then you say int numbers is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because we've declared this array as numbers as integer, everything that is going to be within this is going to be an integer. If you declare it with anything else, like a double, it will truncate the values. If you declare it as a float, same thing. But if you declare it as a string, it will give you an error. So basically, that's how you declare an array with already input values. So how do we actually access these array elements or these elements? Say you want to access this guy, this 3, and only the 3 here. So we could say array elements are accessed using their index, which means it starts from 0. So with everything that we've talked about lately, all our indexes start from 0, so that's where we're going with. All index starts from 0, so meaning if we were to talk about this, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So meaning there are 5 elements starting from 0 and to n minus 1. So how to actually get your value at that point? You say data type element is equals to array name at index. So if you don't want to use a loop to actually get your value, you can just say something like int third number. This is your identifier, and then you say equals to numbers at index number 2. Index number 2 is going to be this guy here, because we have 0, 1, and 2, and that's how the Java compiler is going to read this. So we're going to say int third number is equals to numbers at index number 2, and then we just system out the print line third number here, and then what your output is going to be is this value in the middle. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so we talked about length in a previous video. I think that was mathematical operations, strings, and characters. So we're going to use the length property of the string class to actually be able to get the size of our array. So length of any array is the number of elements that it can hold. It is accessed by using the length property, and then how to initialize it, we say int array length is equals to array name dot length. Great. So I'm gonna show you how to do that later on, but right now we're gonna talk about using loops to iterate through the arrays. So let's say you want to see every value in the array, how it's going to come out, and let's just say you want to create a multiplication table and you have a multi-dimensional array for some sort, and then you've used multi-dimensional arrays to implement your multiplication table. So you're going to use loops to be able to iterate through everything, unless you, I don't know, you are hardcore and you want to write in specifically at this point and that point and this point and that point. Basically, we use loops to iterate through arrays, right? And not just any loops. We use for loops in this case in Java. So loops are important, especially with arrays, because they allow the user to access the values stored in the arrays, right? So now, what we're going to talk about now is processing the actual arrays. So assume the array is created as follows. We got double my list. So this is the name of our array, and we initialize it with the size of 10 there. And once we've initialized it, we are going to say, we're going to use the following type of syntax to be able to see our values or output using the command terminal. Okay, so we have this syntax, which is import java.util.scanner. We are calling the scanner, and basically what we're doing is we are telling the user to input values using the scanner. So we have an array, and we are asking the user to say put in whatever objects or whatever values you want to put in the array, right? Great. So if we want, we can say scanner object, which is equal to new scanner system.in, and then we say double my list is equals to new double 10. So this is our array initialization. So we say system.out.print enter my list dot length. So this guy dot length. So meaning the size of this guy. So it's gonna say enter 10 values, because the value here is 10 and the size of this array is 10. So you're gonna say the output is going to be enter 10 values, and after that we're going to use a loop to iterate through every instance of all that. So we're going to say for int I is equal to 0, I should be less than my list dot length, I plus plus. We're going to have my list at I, meaning whatever index that we're going to put, whatever index that value is, we're going to initialize it with whatever the user is going to put in. So wherever I is 0, so if I is 0, it means that at index 0, the user is going to put that at index 1, and so on and so forth until the loop actually ends, right? Great. So going to the second type, we are going to initialize the arrays with random values. So just like before, we're going to import the scanner, and we're going to have our scanner object there, and everything is here. So remember I talked about math.random, the random class, and this is how to actually um, put in values, random values for however much this is. So you can just copy this and you can try running this from your command terminal. And if you want to actually see what values you've gotten, you can use this system.out.println value plus I is equals to my list at I. This is going to be your output value, and this is what enables you to see the values of your array. So you can use this type of syntax here because we are printing it out. So we're going to say system.out.println value I. So if it's a value 0, it will give you the value at value 0, 1, 1, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have our third code here, and then we have this scenario. So we are summing all the elements and use a variable named total to store the sum. Initially, total is 0, right? Here, our total is 0, and we have our for loop here. So we have for int I is equal to 0, my list.length. We're going to say for every iteration here, we're going to say total, and then here we have our augmented operator. If you don't know what these augmented operators are, you should go watch the video on selections. And we have our total value here, and we have got our augmented operator, and then we have my list at I. So whatever value that we plug into this array, or whatever values are already in the array, are going to be added to all that, and then we are going to get the value of total here. Alright, so going to our fourth type of code, finding the largest element. So we use the variable named max to store the largest element, and initially max is 0. To find the largest element in the array, my list, compare each element with the max and update the max if the element is greater than the max. And you can use it using the following syntax. Assuming that you've already initialized this array with actual values or already existing values, so you can use this syntax. And then 5, we have random shuffling. This is specifically important, or especially important when it comes to some concepts later on in programming. But essentially, if you want to shuffle values, or you want to change a position or the value of an array from one point to another, you could use this syntax here. So we have this for loop and say int I is equal to my list.length minus 1, and then we say for I is greater than 0. So long as I is greater than 0, we decrement this array. So it's the same as an increment, it's just that we've changed this up a little bit. If you want, you can start from I is equal to 0, then I is less than my list.length, and then here you can say I plus plus. It's the same thing, it will give you the same value. And then we say int j is equal to int math.random and all this. Sorry, just before you copy all this int j is not allowed within this for loop. This int j is supposed to be initialized on the outside. I'm sorry for the mess up, but this int j is supposed to be initialized on the outside of the for loop, and then you just say j. So I think right now you can just make the edit, or let me just edit it real quick. Okay, so now that I fixed the errors, there were some errors within my code that would cause the program not to run. So that error has been fixed. So a few heads up, or a small heads up here. You cannot declare any integer or double or any value within a for loop unless if it is under a switch statement, or if it is under an if or else statement. You cannot put an int, double, float, string, whatever value. I don't know about strings, but I know for sure int, double, you cannot add those within a for loop unless if it is under an if statement. Okay, so with that being said, I was talking about the j here. J is equal to int math.random, and then we say I plus 1. So this guy, we just call j for whatever value that is going to be there, and then we go to this temporary value. So double temp, because our list is a double, so whatever value that we're going to get in here is going to be a double as well. And then we say double is equal to, sorry, temp is equal to my list at I. So meaning our temp value is going to equal to the value at I for my list, right? And for that value at the temp at I in my list, we are going to say I is equal to my list at J, right? And then my list at J is the value of my list at J is equal to temp. So meaning we are printing out this guy. So we have basically swapped the two. So this is a type of swapping mechanism or swapping syntax that you will find very useful later on if you're asked to switch the numbers or try to swap these two values in an array. So you print it out like that, and that's how you get your values. Alright, so let's go to our sixth code. And this one is basically a linear search. How to search for anything in a linear pattern. So you have your array and you're trying to search for a specific value in that array. So we say import java.util.scanner, and then we have all these things here. And then we say system.out.println, what value are you looking for? And then we declare this key as an integer, and this is what we're going to use to actually look for our object. So it equals to object.nextInt, and then we say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than my list.length, and I plus plus. Say if key is equal to my list, or let's just say if key and my list brings out true, right? Then system.out.println, the value you're looking for is in the array, or we would say system.out.println my list I, depending on how you write your code, whatever. So you put this else statement, value does not exist in the array. So if you want to look for something in a particular array, you can implement this structure like so, and you can get your inputs or outputs. Okay, so finally, with single dimensional arrays, we have sorting arrays here. So we say double my list equals to new double 10, and then we say double temp is equal to 0. And because this temp is equal to 0, we say for int I is equal to 0, I my list dot length I plus plus, my list dot I is equal to int math dot random 10. So we initialize this array with random numbers, right? And then we say we have a nested for loop in this guy here, and we have this sort of syntax. And remember, I talked about the shuffling and the kind of swapping scenario here. So we have two nested loops, and then here we have int I is equal to 0, int j is equal to I plus 1. So meaning this guy is going to be one value greater than I. And then we say my list at length and then j plus plus. So if my list at I is less than my list at j, we swap the values so that j becomes I and I becomes j, and then we print out the list. So you can try it out. You can initialize the array with random numbers or with numbers of your own choosing or randomly, and then you can try using this syntax and you will get your values in a sorted order. Alright, so with that being said, we are done with basically single dimensional arrays. So feel free to play around with all the operations here and there and yeah, see what you find. So let's talk about multi-dimensional arrays. So the implementation is the same with single dimensional arrays, just that now you have got multiple brackets in here. And if you want to declare the size of everything, just do it the same way as you would initialize a single dimensional arrays. But the only difference here is that you should know that this first one is the rows and the second one is columns. So that's something that you should just keep at the back of your head. So how to access elements in the array, same as single dimensional arrays, but this time you only have two brackets. And then if you want to get the number that is at index or row 1, column 2, you will get that type of value that is already specified in there. So processing two-dimensional arrays, we have this sort of syntax. And if you want to initialize array with input values, you could say call out the scanner, and then you say int matrix is equal to new int 10 10. So this is the size of the 10. Size of the array matrix is 10, and says this in the outer print line, enter matrix length rows and matrix 0 dot length columns. And then we have for int row is equal to 0 row, right? So this is the for loop for the rows, and we have row equal to 0, row should be less than matrix dot length row plus plus, and then we say for int column, which is equal to 0, and column at should be less than matrix at row dot length, right? And then we have column plus plus, and then we say matrix at row column equals to object dot next int. So you have initialized basically with input values using this syntax. Alright, so next up we have these processing arrays, and we initialize with random values. Same syntax for row, for column, and then we say matrix row column is equal to int math.random multiplied by 100. Then how to output your value, you also use nested for loops. So multi-dimensional arrays uses nested for loops, while single dimensional arrays only use one for loop. So we have system.out.print, matrix row, column, and then we have this type of scenario here. Because we want to print out on the same line, we are going to get these values, and then we're going to put a space in between them. And just like nested loops, we're going to put this system.out.print line here so that we have spacing in our actual line of code. So we're going to talk about summing or elements, and it's the same as single dimensional arrays. It's just that now we have a row and a column, and we have these two guys here. So you can just feel free to copy that if you'd like. You can pause the video and you can just copy that, and we're done. And finally, we have random shuffling. Say that here we have initialized our int I1 outside, int J1 outside here, and then we say I1 is equals to int math.random, and then matrix.length, J1 equals to int math.random matrix at I to J length. So we have all these guys, we swap our matrix I and J with matrix I1 and IJ, and we have this guy, and just like we said in single dimensional arrays, don't initialize any int in the for loop here. So you can just rewrite this code here. You can just put it outside there and then just leave the temp like so, and then you have your value there. So feel free to copy this and run it using your command prompt. Don't forget to remove the temp from the loop here and declare it outside the loop, and you get your values like that. Alright, so that's basically it with processing two-dimensional arrays. Like always, like I say always anyway, with Java or programming, it's very important for you to practice and be innovative. So with this syntax here, try to make your own program that does specific things using whatever implementation this is. And if you have any, if you encounter any errors, please let me know down in the comment section, or I'm gonna drop my email and you can personally send me your code, and I will help you on how to solve your problem and help you debug your code. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which is object-oriented programming. Take care, and please like and subscribe.